Okay, so let us begin. So, good afternoon, all of you, and thank you for coming here to attend this talk. The Shastra Socratic Society is a student-run organization at IIT Gandhinagar that focuses on the important issues and trends of our time. Today, we have invited Lieutenant General Katoch, who is a Special Forces officer with over 40 years of experience and service in the Indian Army. His last post was as Director of the General of Information System. He served as India's defense attaché to Republic of Korea and Japan between 1994 and 97. He has authored over 200 articles on various topics such as international relations, strategic affairs, national security, military, amongst others. A leading defense analyst, he is a visiting fellow in foreign think tanks as well at both national and international levels. Today, he will talk on Himalayas, India's northern frontier, Chinese claims on the Indian territory, and significance of Siachen. Without further ado, I would like to invite him onto stage so that we can begin.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I'd like to thank all the organizers who invited me to come and talk to you all. It gives me immense pleasure to talk to people from the IIT. We all know that there was a time when India was 50 years ahead of China. And today we are decades behind. And I believe that if anybody can reverse that process, it is the IITs of India, provided the country knows how to tap the talent. Just 2 days back, the World Bank has said that India can have their own Silicon Valley within 5 years. You would have read in the papers, provided we can organize our innovation ecosystem. Now that is a big if. You would also read very recently that the Minister of State for Defense briefed the Prime Minister that the Make in India in defense is not going the way it is floundering because the people who are supposed to push it are not accountable. So that is the other side. Let me come to these two topics. When I was given these topics, the understanding was that I'm going to speak on 45 minutes on each of these topics, followed by 15 minutes of question and answer. But on arrival, I've been told there's 1 hour. So what's going to happen is that I'm going to rush through the presentation, keep your questions towards the end, and I will try and finish in less than 1 hour. So let's look at Himalayas, northern frontiers. How are the Himalayas formed? There are two theories. One is by the Geological Society of UK, which said that it is the Indian plate, its collusion with the Eurasian plate, which started 50 million years ago, and it is still continuing. And that is what has raised the Tibetan Plateau and the Himalayas. There is a more recent theory which says that the Indian plate was part of a supercontinent called Gondwana. And this supercontinent also had Africa, Australia, Antarctica, and South America as part of it. And when this broke up, the Indian Ocean came up. And that is how the Himalayas have been formed. But if you go to Ladakh and you go north of Khardungla, you will find there are big boulders and sand, the type you find in the seabed. You would have heard of the Pangongso Lake. Some of you may have even visited. It's 134 kilometers long. At its broadest, it is just 5 kilometers wide. It's got sea water. Approximately 2/3 is in China, 1/3 is with India. You go to Suketi Fossil Park in Himachal Pradesh, you will find the fossils of animals, the type you find in Africa. You go to Andaman and Nicobar, you will find tribals resembling those that are in Africa. So what does the Himalayan range give us? It's about 2,400 kilometers long, It gives you a massive frontier. It's got about 50 plus peaks, which are very, very high. The ranges are given there. In fact, outside the Himalayan region, you will find a lone peak which is as high in the Andes. So it protects you against invasion. It gives you monsoons. If the high Himalayas were not there, you wouldn't have adequate monsoons. It gives you glacier. It gives you lakes. It gives you water. It gives you forests. It gives you minerals, herbs, medicinal plants. But the Himalayas were not impregnable. You would have read that whole lot of scores of Chinese coming to India in search of Buddhism and the history of medieval India. And you find that the Buddhism actually traveled to Japan and Korea via China from India. You find the former Chinese ambassador to the US saying, India conquered and dominated China culturally for 20 centuries without ever having to send a single soldier across our borders. You had many expeditions from India also going into Tibet. Like one famous one was by Francis' young husband. He actually went 4 times into Tibet. Zorawar Singh invaded Tibet, went up till Taklakot. In fact, if you go to Leh, you will find his memorial and the fort there. If you go to Forge, Jammu and Kashmir Rifles, which is an Indian Army unit, you will find a flag which was brought by Zorawar Singh. And the British Indian Army had garrisons inside Tibet, including at Yatung. Then there was the old Silk Route, which came from Central Asia, came to India, went up to China, and some went directly from Central Asia also into China. What changed the threat from Himalayas? It was the rise of communist China. Mao Zedong said, Tibet is the palm of China, and Ladakh, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, and Nepal, which is today's Arunachal Pradesh, are its fingers. The same thing was reiterated by Deng Xiaoping. And when China invaded Vietnam in 1979, under Deng Xiaoping's rule, Xi Jinping, the present president of China, was a secretary in the Ministry of National Defense of China. So he is also in the same mold. On the top left, you look at what was original China. And in fact, till 13th century, Tibet was an independent country. In fact, it's on record that in 7th century, Tibet invaded China and briefly also captured their capital. And if anybody had claims on Tibet, it is actually the Mongols, not the Chinese. The Mongols ruled the longest in China. But what Mao Zedong did, the moment Communist China rose, they captured Tibet, they captured Xinjiang, and they captured Inner Mongolia to give depth to the mainland. And Tibet is also all the minerals and the water is there. And see the 5 fingers he is talking about. Nepal, you know what they are doing now to Nepal. Sikkim, when the recent Doklam standoff was there, they threatened, the media say that we can start an insurgency in Sikkim. Bhutan, they have come into the Doklam Plateau. I'll be talking to you about it a little later. Nepal, till 2005, China's claim in Arunachal Pradesh was only the Tawang Plateau. Suddenly, one fine morning, the joker gets up in the morning and says, entire Arunachal is ours. On the right, you see a map which was under the British, a Shimla Convention in 1914, which was signed by the Chinese representative, by the Tibetan representative, and of course by British India, acknowledging that the McMahon-McCartney line is sacrosanct and Tibet is an independent country. Then what happened is China said, sorry, this representative did not have the authority of the central government. So they reneged on that. Siachen Glacier. It is the second longest glacier out of the two outside the polar region. 72 kilometers long. And it starts, the other one being in Tajikistan, which is Fedjenko. It emanates from Indra Col at the northernmost tip. Indra Col is named on Lord Indra, not on Indira Gandhi, by the way. And it is flowing east of the Saldoro Range. East of the Saldoro Range, not into Pakistan. And Siachen in Balti language actually means the place of roses. If you go in summers to Ladakh, you will find the Nubra Valley, the Shok Valley, and even the Indus are right of colors. They're all rose bushes. Different color of rose bushes. They're red in color mostly, but they don't have those thorns. What started the Siachen dispute? Please go back to 1947, what happened? Barrister Redcliffe arrives in India on 8th of July. I don't know whether he'd seen a map ever. He is made to head two commissions, one for partition of Bengal, one of Punjab. Both commissions given two Muslims, two non-Muslims, nobody from the military. He divides the country, he pronounces his verdict on the 17th of July, 17th of August, and pushes back to England on 18th of August. That was his first and last visit. What Mountbatten did is that he announced the partition 2 days earlier, even before the Boundary Commission was announced. So there was something to that. This I'm not going to elaborate. I think you must have seen it on BBC recently. But I want to cover the treachery which happened immediately post-partition. Contrary to the thinking that, the Pakistanis invaded J&K, this was a conspiracy hacked between Mountbatten, his counterpart Lockhart in Pakistan, and Douglas Gracie, the general, the British general who was CNC of the Pakistan Army, the new army. The idea was to invade J&K, to give a foothold to the Pakistani army, so that when India goes to the UN, again on behest of Mountbatten, Pakistan becomes a party to this dispute. Otherwise, there was no dispute. Now for this, Nehru was kept in the dark. Jinnah was in picture. The infiltrators who came, the Razakars, had an adequate mix of Pakistani regulars, including officers. There was no deployment in Ladakh, so nobody knew where to go in Ladakh. The Razakar columns in Ladakh was led by British officers of the Pakistani army, but they were blocked by the Nubra Guards. Churchill had told Gracie, let these two fellows fight, these two countries, but keep a part of India so that they will keep fighting in perpetuity. Skardu was being held by Indian J&K State Forces garrison for 8 months. Gracie is the one who oversaw the massacre of that garrison, families, etc., everybody. But he saved the garrison commander, Lieutenant Colonel Sher Jung Thapa. Why did he save him? When Gracie, as a captain, posted in 1st Gorkha Rifles in Dharamsala, today's Himachal Pradesh, he was a good hockey player and he liked this fellow, Sher Jung Thapa, as a youngster. In fact, he got him a commission into the state forces. So he saved him, but the garrison was gone. Now with Skardu gone, the threat to Kargil and Leh was open. So Indian Army had to go in for massive attacks, including the capture of Zojila Pass, for which we suffered a lot of casualties. Now why did the British do all this? In their thinking it was that, the new country they are making, Pakistan, is the one which is going to fight the communist influence of China and Russia on the Kashmir borders, and see what has happened today. Pakistan is a vassal state of China and is getting closer to Russia. Then came I also wanted to mention that at the time when India went to UN, there was no requirement to go to the UN. The Pakistanis were totally on the run. We could have taken POK back then. But Nehru was prevailed upon by Mountbatten that let's do it. And UN in any case is a powerless organization, at least it then was. Then what happened in 1949, the Karachi Agreement was signed, where the ceasefire line was, you see this peak, NJ 9842, was marked only up till NJ 9842. And beyond that, it was sent thence north to the glaciers. Now, NJ 9842 has no tactical or strategic significance. In fact, it was never held, it's not held today. It was not held then, ever. You would have heard of General S.K. Sinha, who retired as Governor J&K. He was a young captain that time. He went to Karachi. He was a military operations director at that time. And he said the orders to mark it only at NJ 9842 came from Delhi. So this again was a conspiracy, that you mark it only till then, and beyond that, we will see what is to be done. Also the marking was done on a 1 by 250,000 map with a thick sketch pen. If you do that, the width of the marking itself becomes 1 kilometer. So we'll keep fighting. Now till 1967-70, the maps of Pakistan, UN, other global atlases depicted CFL correctly up till NJ 9842 and beyond nothing. Then what happened in 1967? The US Defense Mapping Agency, they started showing the Indo-Pak boundary from NJ 9842 directly to KK Pass. Oh. This, as you see. Why did this happen? There were no documents, there were no proof. This was the time when Pakistan was member of both SEATO and CENTO. CIA and Pakistan ISI were 1-to-1. The Americans were trying to get close to China. Of course, that time the president was Lyndon Johnson, but that thaw came in Nixon's time between China and America. So they said, all right, this is and so they said anything north of that becomes Pakistanis. So then other private official cartographers also started producing the same atlas, same maps. And eventually, Pakistan started claiming this as their boundary. Then international expeditions started applying to Pakistan that we want to go to the glacier. In fact, in 1978, a German expedition came, which came up to the Siachen Glacier. I marked that it came and camped here, and they had a Pakistani LO with them. But the chap who actually saved Siachen for us is the gentleman called Colonel Narendra Kumar, also known as Bull Kumar. He had been going on expeditions to Siachen since 1977, and he scaled the Sia Kangdi also. And then in 1983, when news came that the Pakistanis are building up there, and we came to know that a hell of a lot of mountaineering and high altitude equipment is being bought, that is the time India in April '84 went for a heliborne assault and got onto the Saltoro Ridge. Musharraf has admitted as an autobiography that India preempted it. And the mere fact that the Pakistanis wanted to come here also, it shows that it has got a strategic significance, which at later point of time we were trying to neglect. Okay, this I have covered. Now you will find this map on the Google. If you just Google Siachen, I don't know who's put it there. It gives the Pakistani view, fine. In our case, it says from NJ 9842, thence to the glacier as mentioned in 1972 Shimla Agreement. I put these red lines because there is nothing mentioned in the Shimla Agreement, nothing at all, other than the fact that the line of control, henceforth, the CFL will be called the line of control. So this again is mischief. Our interpretation was that from NJ 9842, when it says thence north, India should have actually claimed the Dafdar area or the Balik Pass, which is next to the Wakhan corridor, which was the western extremity of original state of J&K. But somehow India did not project that. This is just to show you the Saltoro Massif. These are actually 3 satellite images together, so it looks very small. It is actually the AGPL along this is something like 110 kilometers. And this is the Indrakol. Now, Pakistan says that India should withdraw from Siachen Glacier. When they say Siachen Glacier is flowing on the east of the Saltoro Range. So there is no question. There actually no Pakistanis next to the Siachen Glacier. They are on the lower slopes of the Saltoro Range. We are holding the heights. Then you find another conspiracy coming up. This you may have read in the papers. In 2011 onwards, the Atlantic Council of Ottawa in Canada started having, Indo-Pak Track 2 and working group meetings, saying that these should be, confidence-building measures between India and Pakistan. And if you see that all the meetings were held everywhere around the world, but not in India. And the last one in Lahore, they came out with a proposal, despite many objections from some of the Indians, that we should demilitarize. Demilitarize means you get off from the Saltoro Range. And somehow, before this agreement came into the open and there was an uproar, the Indian media also was trying to orchestrate that Siachen has got no significance and we should make it into the Saltoro Range and we should make it into a peace path. And you find now that if you read the book, Sanjay Baru's Accidental Prime Minister, the Prime Minister himself wanted this to become a peace pact without understanding what are the strategic implications. What is the strategic significance? Firstly, as far as the glacier is concerned, the glacier, which is a flowing river, it is one of the biggest freshwater reserves for India. In fact, before Musharraf became the President of Pakistan, he gave a presentation to their Ministry of Defense saying that in 1947, the per capita availability of water in Pakistan was 6,000 cubic meters annual. It has already come down to 1,000 cubic meters. And just because of water, Pakistan should capture J&K. Next, the strategic significance of the Saltoro Ridge. It juts into China and Pakistan. And its significance is more because you find that the Shaksgam Valley has been handed over by China to Pakistan. The Chinese already sitting here in POK. They're not only the CPC is coming up, a brigade worth of garrison is just 14 kilometers from Skardu. In the east, China is already illegally occupying Aksai Chin, and it has been giving claims towards eastern Ladakh. Now, if we vacate, what happens? Because at that time also, a lot of people were saying, we can, if Chinese come or Pakistan come, we'll go and take it. You can't take it. Pakistan has tried their level best to recapture. You cannot, because on top there are just 10 to 12 guys. And if they're not sleeping, you cannot take it. So if somebody comes and occupies, you can keep sending waves after waves, waves after waves. Nothing's going to happen. If you vacate Siachen, this is subsector north. This is Karakoram Pass. If you vacate the Siachen Glacier, this becomes untenable. The Chinese will just take it. Same thing happens to subsector west. which is facing the Pakistanis, because it is service along the Ladakh range. And if you're going to withdraw and there are no defenses behind, that goes to Pakistani, they'll have a handshake. Where do you go? And then Leh will be within artillery range. When people said we should vacate it, nobody said where do we go? Because you see this Chor Batla and Eastern Ladakh, they actually no defenses other than a section odd at Khardungla. So you will have to deploy more than 2 divisions plus fresh to defend Ladakh. And even that will not stop the infiltration. Then you will have to have reserve formations, like you have the Romeo Force and Victor Force and Kilo Force. Otherwise, through Zanskar range, the infiltration will go down to Kullu Manali. These are the strategic disadvantages. Now, recent developments says that China is now making a 36-kilometer road in the Shaksgam Valley and making posts also joining up with KK Pass. No immediate threat, but yes, India has got to be careful, because from the Siachen Glacier, there is a sheer drop to Shaksgam, but also your aircraft which comes, and there is a Italian expedition which came via that route, came up to Dharamshar about a century back. So it is possible for small parties to come up. In fact, when I was commanding that brigade, I was to make sure that whenever the AN-32 or the fixed wing drop comes, it has to go till the Dharamshar Glacier, take a U-turn and then drop at Kumar Post. I was put people there that nobody comes up with a missile or something and knocks out. So there is we have to be careful about it. Border security challenges. I just want to mention first that when you talk of border security, this is the era of hybrid war and asymmetric war. So there are actually no permanent borders and there are no rules and regulations. So you have to be internally also strong. Like you talk of these 2.5 fronts or 3 fronts or things like that. So it is not just the border which matters. India's land border is about 15,072. We got a coastline of 7,863, exclusive economic zone of 1.02 million. See what's written on the left-hand bottom. And this was told by Ashley Tellez of Carnegie Foundation way back in 2012. India being continuously subjected to terror actually suits many. He didn't elaborate who are those many. That includes the West. India is a sponge that absorbs terror. Means what? We better fight our own war. Yes, we'll get some help, we'll get intelligence, blah, 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 blah. But we have to fight it ourselves, even against Pakistan. Don't think that just because US will say, okay, Pakistan is a terrorist state, the things are going to become okay. No. What China has been doing, we are not even aware of. I'll cover that subsequently. So we have to fight it ourselves. So it's combined, the hinterland and the border. So you have the missile threat, you have the nuclear threat, you have the Islamic terrorism coming, you have the demographic invasion which is coming through. And internally, the biggest fault line is the Maoists. I just want to show you here so that we are clear, what have we got, what has Pakistan got, what's China got. Total area, 2,22,236 square kilometers, original state of J&K. What is J&K? Just 1.06567. It's less than half. POK is 72,934. I've taken out 5180 square kilometers Shaksgam, which they are given to China already. What is COK? China occupied Kashmir. You have the Attaché, you got the Shaksgam, so that makes it 42,735 square kilometers. That is not all. They have been doing this salami slicing. Move forward, India says, okay, we will not do anything. Whenever we took a stand, they went back. So many times we did not. So in 2012, there was a Shyam Saran committee report, Ambassador Shyam Saran, which was presented to the Prime Minister, never declassified, but the inside story is that we have lost over and above another 645 square kilometers of Indian territory by this salami slicing. In fact, Ambassador Phunchok Stop then, he is retired now, who belongs to Ladakh, he said 400 kilometers out of the 645 is only in Ladakh. So, and now you find that Gilgit-Baltistan has again been leased out by China, by Pakistan to China for 50 years. And that is our territory. So overall comes to 1,16,351 square kilometers. That is the type of territory which China is holding, and over and above they have illegal claims. Here I just want to mention that in J&K sector against Pakistan, all we have is a fence which is 407 kilometers, not all. And that is also own side of the border, 1.5 kilometers, not on the LOC. The Chinese claims, over and above what they are holding. In the western sector, they are 832 kilometers, and disputed area is 1,702 square kilometers. Aksai chain, of course, we are claiming that 38,000 square kilometers. Then you have the central sector in the Barahoti area, where they claim 40 and 2,086 kilometers. And of course, in eastern sector, they claim 1,346 plus 90,000 square kilometers. You would remember that in 2013, when the Chinese Prime Minister came, Li Keqiang, these guys had made a 19 kilometer deep intrusion in eastern Ladakh at Raki Nala. All these maps and all came in the media also. And subsequently, our delegations going there, I had also gone on a delegation and went to the Ministry of Defense. They said, no, see, it's not an intrusion. Actually, our chav was maybe feeling very cold, and these are sunny areas, so we went there. I said, who are you trying to fool? Okay, now the areas which they are claiming against Bhutan is the Doklam Plateau and two up north. A lot of people don't know Doklam Plateau is actually not the property of government of Bhutan. It is the property of the royal family of Bhutan, and I've been writing past 10 years that let's India at least buy it, or let's convince the king and do a joint project and sit there. This is the area of the standoff which took place. Now what happened is, when the standoff moved back, why did it move back? It moved back because the BRICS summit was in China. And had Prime Minister Modi said, I'm not going to go for it, so they would have said, and Xi Jinping was to chair it, so not good as far as the BRICS summit is concerned. So they said, all right. The moment the BRICS summit was over, they've advanced. And they are now 81 meters away. They are not at the place of standoff, agreed, but they're just behind, and they brought a road there. And I say what is going to happen is that in next 2 years, they already with talks with Bhutan, they're going to build a road to Thimphu, they'll build a railway line and start doing trade with them. And like the Nepalese say, come on boys, be with us, forget India. We have to be careful about that. This is from Devka files from Israel, 2001. Right from Mao's time, their ministry was into the Maoist ideology spread all over the world. Not in India, but in Nepal, in Burma, in Peru, Japanese Red Army. And the one which survived was in Nepal. And their aim was to have a government always in Nepal which will not be favorable to the US and India. And I think they are building up to that already. We've been reading articles by Claude Arpey. He's a French man. He's done a lot of research on China. He wrote in 2014 He says foreign correspondents have been observing PLA soldiers in uniform working in northern Nepal. So they were already there inside. And now the news is that Nepal is becoming a control center of Islamic terrorism. And it's going to happen, and that is why you find the Pakistani Prime Minister rushing there. Although the Muslim population in Pakistan is only 5%. But the area of western Nepal is not very much into the control of the army, and it is the infiltration and the open borders. Your Prime Minister has been saying, I think 2 years back he gave a statement, he said people are coming from open borders and destroying our railways, sabotaging our railways. Who was he referring to? He was referring to Nepal. Our territorial disputes with Nepal, Myanmar and Bangladesh not been resolved as yet. We should resolve these. We talk of India, China, but what about these small countries? We should resolve. About 15 years back, we started talking of a dual front against India, China and Pakistan against India. It actually started in 1960s, and this is documented. When Chou En-lai tells Ayub Khan, you raise a militia which is going to fight behind enemy lines. Who are those militias? They are the jihadis, they are the Islamists. In 1966, a Pakistani army delegation goes to China. Chou En-lai raises his fist. He said, do you know these are 5 fingers? We put them together, it's a massive punch. But if you cut off one finger, the force, the reduction, dilution is not 5%, it's 50%. So if you keep hitting these guys, and that is what is Pakistan's 1,000-cut policy. And what happened? After this advice Chou En-lai gave to Pakistan way back in 1992, 1993, Pakistani armed modules were not in J&K alone, in 10 states all over India. And this is written by a joint director IB. In fact, I will recommend you must read his book. This guy is no more. He wrote 4 books, but this is the best. The type of secrets you will come to know from this. And they were, you know, Assam, West Bengal, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, Kota, Ajmer, Kerala, the works. And Simmi have already starting sending people to Pakistan for training. And they were sending people to Bangladesh for training. And Bangladesh was formally giving them training. In fact, I can tell you from my experience, when the BNP was ruling in Bangladesh, there were 4 major anti-India terrorist camps being run there with Pakistani instructors and LET instructors. It's just we are lucky that Sheikh Hasina is here. And she's gone after terrorism, but you don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure the Chinese will also want somebody anti-India coming in Bangladesh. What about us? The same chap says, I kept on saying that let us go inside and hit the roots inside Pakistan. And we are still in the same state. Don't get very hyped on this, you know, surgical strikes and blah, blah, blah. Anybody heard of UWSA? It is a 10,000 strong narco army in Myanmar, which is a proxy of China. On the west, China has the proxy, the Taliban, which is holding the Golden Crescent, where all the opium is there. Here it is the UWSA, and they are 100% Buddhist, by the way. China has armed them to the teeth. It's all available on Google. 3 years back, they also given them armed helicopters fitted with missiles. It's deadlier than the LTT. And they've created that saying, all right, Myanmar, you better behave, otherwise we will destabilize you. Don't try and get closer to US, etc., etc. But if you're going to have talks, we will be party to it. Like this side, they are arming the Taliban along with Pakistan, but they say if there are talks with Taliban, we have to be party with it. That is the sub-conventional warfare of today, which we don't understand. We understand conventional might and diplomacy. Sorry, it's not going to work. Okay, what all China has been doing, you just go to the last three. When Prime Minister Modi gave a call of, he said, all right, look east will become act east. What did the Chinese do? In Myanmar, they have created an umbrella organization called the United Liberation Front of West, South and East Asia, with 9 major militant groups, including the NSCN-K and the ULFA. The ULFA militant hierarchy, in any case, when they were kicked out from Bangladesh, are based at Ruli in China. The NSCN-K broke off, they abrogated their ceasefire with India after 13 years. 2 years before that, you would have read in the media, 5 Chinese nationals were caught with fake Indian news identity en route to go and talk to the Nagas. Now, the Chinese media says that, all right, if you want to put pressure on Pakistan and Kashmir, you'll destabilize your northeast. Last December, you would have read PLA learning Tamil and Malayalam. Why do you think they're doing that? Only for surfing the net? Nonsense. South India is a matter of time. Along with the terrorism coming into Maldives, it's going to explode. You have the Popular Front of India. If you Google an article called the Southern Outpost of Jihad, there are photographs of them in uniform with weapons, training in jungles in Kerala. 5 of their cadres were caught in 2005 in Kupwara, North Kashmir, trying to cross into POK. That is the warfare of today. China's unrestricted warfare. I'm sure you are aware of this. I just want to say that you just take the military, from the atomic down to terrorism. Every dirty type of warfare is part of it. And it's legitimate as far as China is concerned. A lot of people know about this. What people don't know, and what I want to tell you, is that they have a strategy of deep coalitions. What is a coalition? It's not like CETO or CENTO or NATO. It can have multiple nation states, it can even have one. It can have civil society organizations, narco mafias, private corporations whose interests are at stake, individual, speculator and other components. Deep coalition involves players at many levels of the system. It is multidimensional, with all groups operating all the time in continuous flow. This is what they are doing to the countries at our periphery. And we only want to talk of, you understand, that's the way you have to deal with these countries. What did Chanakya say? Sam, Dham, Dand, Bhed. Are we doing that? No. Okay, so what are the challenges at the border? Firstly, the LOC against Pakistan. Inhospitable terrain, weather, heavy snow, lack of obstacles. Complete border is not fenced. And a lot of you may not know that in North Kashmir, the snow is so heavy that at times the entire fence is buried under snow. Then there is damage in avalanches, explosives. Farming and habitation is right till the border. And you will have, you see, because infiltrators who come through, can't make it to the hinterland in one day. So there are houses a kilometer apart, 2 kilometers apart, they come and stay there. When I was doing the NDC course in 2000, Farooq Abdullah came as the chief minister. So the American student got up. He says that I believe you have these 20 odd villages which are within the 5 kilometer belt, J&K. Why don't you move them? Because you've got so much of land in J&K. And you create a demilitarized zone and you give orders that, okay, anybody coming is going to be shot. This guy says, yeah. He says, I've sent the first proposal that for one village, moving it, I want 100 crores. So that was the end of it, and I think he was lying. I mean, you don't want to do it, so it's a different thing altogether. Then the LAC, ever expanding claims. inhospitable terrain, very poor border infrastructure, large barren tracts. Then the Chinese are arming, assisting insurgents in northeast India, Maoists, and sheltering the Ulfa. They're also patronizing the villages in certain areas. It's like when this 19-kilometer deep intrusion came. You know what the Home Minister and the Defense Minister said in Parliament? They said, we don't have any administration in that area. Why the hell don't you have? You have to move up, it is your territory. And same thing is happening in Maoist area also. The Dandakaranya forest and the Abu Maj area. Unless the administration goes in, there's no point going in and doing some shooting and coming back. Inadequate weapons, communication, surveillance system, mobility, survival. Let me only talk of surveillance. China has 24/7 satellite surveillance along the LSE. We don't have. We don't have the roads. At certain places, we are sitting 60 kilometers behind, or maybe even more. You would have read when this Tooting intrusion came in January, it was all in the media. The army took 19 hours to reach that area. And the Chinese already made 1.125 kilometer road inside. And they were using heavy equipment and under 3 feet of snow, so they meant business. It was found by default by a hunter. How can you have that sort of a thing? Today you read in the paper, even the Nepalese want to deploy drones along the border. Army doesn't have those. You don't have MAVs. Communication systems. Illegal immigration, drug flow from Bangladesh, and the politician narco nexus, terrorist nexus. The amount of drugs which come from west into India, the same amount comes from east. But nobody talks of the east. The Myanmar border is open. The Assam rifle by orders is deployed behind. It's by design. So it's open to the mafias and for the narcotics and everything and for the infiltration. Open borders with Nepal and Myanmar, I already mentioned. Hell, a lot of SSB battalions have been opened up with raised for Nepal border. How are they deployed? Nakas, 1.5 to 2 kilometers away. Open border means what? Open border means that you don't require a visa and you don't require any documentation, fine. But it does not mean that you cannot channelize the movement. Unless you do that, how are you going to stop the terrorists and the infiltration and the narcotics and the weapons coming in? These are photographs I just wanted to show you, published in one of my articles, the Sunjwan army camp, which was attacked in Jammu. You find next to the wall, there are 3-story buildings looking right inside the garrison. How can you permit this? Even in the hinterland, now earlier it was that from certain army installations, 900 meters there will be no this thing, construction. Then it became 100. Now at places it become 10 meters. Now tell me, ammunition depot or whatever it is. Okay. Well, I'll not elaborate on the Rohingyas. Are you aware of the Illegal Migrants Determination Tribunal Act of 1983 or no? I just want to explain that this was passed by the Congress in 1983. It was only passed for Assam. And it meant what? If I am a Assamese, the Bangladeshi comes and plonks next to me, it is my responsibility to go to the court and prove that he is an outsider and get him out. So it took 10 years for the Supreme Court to scrap this, but by that time, so many districts became Bangladeshi predominant, and that is what has happened today. And there is a genesis for this, not only the vote banks. Before he became Prime Minister, when he was a politician in East Pakistan government, he wrote a book. He says, East Pakistan must have land for its expansion, and because Assam has abundant forests, mineral resources, coal, petroleum, Eastern Pakistan must include Assam to be economically and financially strong. So that was the thinking. And our 2 pence politicians for their vote banks permitted this happen. status of border infrastructure actually atrocious. Out of 73 roads, only 27 roads have been built, and even those are bad gradient. The gradient, etc., if you see down below, the Home Minister said that the Minister of State for Home, they'll be completed by 2020. Sorry, nothing is going to happen. And at certain posts, even in the forward post, narrow roads, one-way vehicle, two vehicles cannot cross. Out of the 14 strategic railway lines approved 15 years back, nothing has moved on paper. Yesterday's paper says that the ministry has now said, all right, we'll make 4, but for that the reconnaissance has yet to begin. What do we need? You all heard a talk by General P.K. Singh? What did he say at the end? He said, we need a white paper. That white paper is what? We need a national security strategy. We don't have one. That a national security strategy means military strategy. Sorry, military strategy is just one part. National security strategy includes your individual security, social security, health security, economic security, energy security, environment security, the works. This document has not, the work has not even been started. And this is despite the fact that the previous government admitted in Parliament we do not have a national security strategy, we just have some policy letters lying left, right, and center. Sorry, that's not. Second, you've never taken a comprehensive defense review. What is required to be done? What are our areas of interest? You require to revamp the national security architecture. We are going by this Act of 1961, which is the copy of the British Act, British Indian Army Act. What does it say? Are you aware who's responsible for the defense of India? Anybody? It's not the defense minister. It is the defense secretary. Imagine. Who never comes out, who never gives any statement. And as per this, the 3 Army, Navy, Air Force are attached offices. So there is unaccountability. And that is why even this Make in India is not taking over. That is what Dr. Subhash Bhamre has said. He said there is no accountability in the Ministry of Defense. When 9/11 happened, after that we had the Indo-US Defense Planning Group, which was meeting every 6 months. First one was in Delhi. I was a builder at that time, so I attended that. The US Department of Defense delegation, 80% were either military on deputation or permanent absorbment in the Department of Defense of the US. How the hell do you function that you have no military professionals in your MOD? This is India. I'll just talk of the defense budget. How do we make the defense budget? This government, last three defense budgets have been negative in actual terms. But why does it happen? 3 services put up the request. Headquarter ideas puts it together. Then it goes to MOD. MOD will do a little tinkering. They give it to the finance. Finance will say, sorry boys, this is the money, carry on. There is no operational discussion. How does it happen in the US? US has got an Armed Forces Senate Committee. So the theater commanders and the Special Operations Command commander give a presentation to the Armed Forces Senate Committee. They say, friend, this is our capability today. My theater, Special Operations Command, this is the money if we want. If you give us this money, this will be our operational capability. The Department of Defense doesn't go to the Congress. This is the defense budget we require. It is the Armed Forces Senate Committee which goes. Now, that should be followed here by you have a standing committee, parliamentary committee for defense. Otherwise, what happens is you don't even know, country doesn't know what state we are. So suddenly, if a chief's letter to the Prime Minister is leaked, there are tremors. Like this time when the Parliamentary Standing Committee has come out in the open is come in the media, they say, atrocious state. How can you have this sort of budgeting for the defense? All right. I'll just like to mention the last one, effective border control. We don't have the system of one border, one control. Even in Ladakh, what's happening is, you hear that the Chinese come into the area of Depsang and Chumar. Why do they come there? It is the ITBP which is deployed there. Now, the Kargil Review Committee had said that to relieve the stress on the army, you can have Central Armed Police Forces deployed in these areas. But they'll be under command the army. Now, here the ego problem has come. So, if somebody comes into Depsang, the ITBP will, through their channel, tell the MHA. MHA will tell the MOD. MOD will come down. But when the flag meeting is to be held, the army is right in front. That sort of a lopsided arrangement you cannot have. Half the length of the land borders is our sea coast. But the Navy and the complete Indian Coast Guard is under the Ministry of Defense. So at least these Central Armed Police Forces put them directly under the Ministry of Defense rather than putting them under MHA. 2013, I went with General P.K. Singh to Kabul. So we went to the Afghan Army Chief's office. He said, I had just been invited by Pakistan. He said, I went to Karachi, I went into the ops room, and I found that on the left side, they've written enemy, and there is a map of India and there's a map of Afghanistan. So he said, I said, what the hell is this? So they probably forgot to take it off. So they said, no, they were just doing some exercise and all. He says, you guys keep talking of a two front. What about Pakistan? It's a ready-made two front. Why don't we two get together and from both sides have this fellow? Okay, I'll not cover these. I only want to talk about special operations. You see, warfare is in 4 major segments: nuclear, conventional, sub-conventional, cyber/electromagnetic. China is top in all. As far as cyber and electromagnetic are concerned, India and Pakistan are babies, not to the level of China. But the fact is that as far as the sub-conventional goes, India is nowhere. We are not proactive. And the fear is of fiasco. And the fear is of not understanding what special operations are today about. It is no more just a direct attack. You have to be in those areas of your interest for perception building, for getting onto the fault lines of the adversary, fanning the dissent which is in those areas. You look at China. All over the world, their development projects have got PLA with them. Certain places, special operations, forces. How do we do projects, say, in Bhutan and 2 minutes more, Bhutan and Nepal, or anywhere? We have a policy of BOT, build, operate, transfer. So you give it back to the country. And if it is not looked after, then people say, after, hey, this was an Indian project. Why shambles? What do the Chinese do? They build, operate, and continue to operate. Today in Kathmandu, in 3-star hotels, you will find Chinese who are half PLH. Chinese are running them. That's what they do all over. We don't do that. We have to have people in all our areas of strategic interests with these type of tasks which we somehow don't. We have to start developing a concept of deep coalitions. All right, this is the aim. I want to have a deep coalition. This is how we're going to get together. I just listed out 8, 9. It can be anything. It depends on what the government wants. Finally, just some specific issues. The BRO, Border Road Organization, and the private firms have to be segmented to have a competition between them. Today, it's the most lopsided way of making border infrastructure. Who's responsible? MHA. Whereas the BRO is directly under MOD. And everything is now through MOD. It's like why your defense is not taken off is because everything is through DRDO. So the private sector has to be brought in separately. Integrate border villages. When this Tooting intrusion took place, the forwardmost village was 2 days walk from the area of intrusion. It had no road. Why? Because the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana says if there are 100 people in a village, you will get a road, otherwise no. But listen, these are your forwardmost human intelligence. So, yeah, the balance I think I covered, and sorry I have overshot time. Thank you very much. I am ready for questions.